Well, it's nicer to be here in person. What a great joy. Of course, the Biltmore, a wonderful destination. And for all the rest of you looking in from across the world, we wish you were here. So I'm very pleased to be able to kick off this second plenary session of the World Economic Forum alongside respected tourism leaders from our own community and across the country. As we continue the forum's rich conversations about how to retool regional economies for recovery and long-term resilience, this dialogue about the future of the travel and tourism industry is especially near and dear to my heart, and by the way, very crucial as our number one industry right here in Miami-Dade County. Travel, tourism, hospitality are central pillars of our regional economy. They directly employ hundreds of thousands of our residents and support the jobs of countless more. And we're very grateful that, in fact, we've had a good resurgence of our tourism economy. But it has been an unprecedented and difficult 20 months for all of those who power our local tourism economy, from the CEOs and all the leaders represented here to the tens of thousands of residents who depend upon travel and tourism to support their families. I'm proud of government at all levels that have been able to make critical investments to support and sustain our tourism workforce and the small businesses who depend on a thriving travel sector. As business leaders here, at home and around the world, have innovated, you've adapted, you've invested to keep employees and customers safe and to begin safely rebuilding. And a special shout out to our local tourism and hospitality industry that has done so much and gone above and beyond, and that deserves an amen and a round of applause, please. Thank you. So as we are emerging, fingers crossed, from this public health and economic crisis, we see not just the light at the end of the tunnel, but we see great new opportunities taking shape in front of us. In a few moments, you'll be hearing from regional and global tourism leaders who have made critical pivots in their operations and strategy to sustain growth in the COVID era. This session is an opportunity for us to have a deeper conversation about the continued investments that we must make, that we must continue to make to grow and strengthen the sector, to reimagine how travel experiences are curated and delivered to attract and protect the traveling public, and to support the millions of men and women who make up the tourism workforce. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that adaptation, resilience, and innovation will be the key ingredients of revival for our communities everywhere and the core pillars of our economic recovery, not only in tourism, but in every aspect of our economy. So to get us started and what I know will be a very fascinating conversation generating ideas and perspectives that will continue to drive us forward, I am very proud to hand over the microphone, metaphorically speaking, to Miami-Dade County's own director and CEO of Port Miami, Juan Carrilla, to introduce the session. Where's Juan? Okay. And by the way, we have Ralph Coutier, our new airport director, here as well. So let's give them both a big round. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your indefatigable efforts and work here in this community and nationwide. And I tell you something about the mayor that I'm sure Arnold will be happy to mention and reiterate. It wasn't until Mayor Daniela Levine Cava led all of us, really, all of us here in the cruise industry at the Port of Miami, starting the first shore power initiative and program right here at Port of Miami. And my pleasure to say that under her leadership, Arnold Donald and Carnival Corporation and 4 of the largest cruise lines in the world will be bringing shore power ready vessels by the fall of 2023. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for that very, very much. Thank you, Arnold, and the entire cruise industry. Let's give her another round. Come on. There we go. So, to the International Economic Forum, to all of its leaders, thank you so much for making this a recurring event here in beautiful Miami-Dade County. Thank you for the opportunity to the Port of Miami to participate, along with our entire Port Miami team that is here. Many of them are here today. And thank you for making this such an easy presentation. And I say easy presentation because I don't think we need to look at names or we need to look at bios of any of the three very distinguished panelists that we have joining us today. It is, first of all, my honor to first introduce the gentleman to my immediate left. Everybody knows who he is. Who doesn't know who he is? Exactly. Right? It's true, right? And I got to tell you, over the last 18 months have been very, very difficult for the cruise industry. But there was never any doubt on many people's minds that this industry will be back, would come back strong, despite taking $20-some billion in new debt. 25, 28, Arnold knows the number better than I. This industry is back. This industry is not only back, but will come back stronger than ever, thanks to the leadership of people like Arnold Donald. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce to the panel, to the audience, to everybody watching, Mr. Arnold Donald, President and CEO of Carnival Corporation. Thank you. Sitting in the middle is another good friend, a leader in his industry, somebody that understands the transportation needs, the vacation needs, the tourist needs of not only the cruise industry, but the travel industry, the airline industry, you name it. Patrick Goddard is the president of Brightline. He runs trains all over the United States. And we're urging him to, let's work quickly, let's do something great, let's build that station at the Port of Miami. Patrick, we had some great conversations, and he begged to say beautiful words about him today. So we're saying beautiful words, but there's a friend and a great leader of this industry, of this community. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Goddard. The third gentleman is another personal friend. That's why it's so easy today, right? Personal friend, good friend, and Miami-Dade County executive for 31 years. Very recently, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava appointed him as the director and CEO of Miami International Airport. And we all know what a fantastic place that is. And we also know, and we'll hear more, right, of the challenges and the great opportunities that Miami International Airport has. And Ralph is going to share some of that, and I'm happy to call him a friend. And ladies and gentlemen, Ralph Gutierrez. So having said that, please enjoy the panel. Welcome the moderator who's on screen to ask some very, take it easy on Arnold. He's our client at the Port of Miami, pays a lot of bills and has a lot of jobs in this community. Go hard on the other two. But anyway, thank you very much.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Chase Caracostas. For those of you who don't know, I work for McClatchy, which is the company that owns Miami Herald. I'm a tourism and business reporter. Really excited to talk with you all today. Sorry that I can't be there myself. I'm a little bit busy here in South Carolina, but I'm excited to chat with each and every one of you. So I guess we'll just kind of start out. We'll go, and for me, it's left to right. So Arnold, we'll start out with you. You just want to give, if I realize you're on the right for everybody else, but if you just want to give, a brief intro about, what your company does and how it's been, affected by COVID. And then we'll go to you, Patrick, and you, Ralph.
Okay, thanks, Chase. And Juan, thank you for the warm introduction. And, without Juan and the mayor and the ports in Everglades and elsewhere, we wouldn't be sailing again. So without them stepping up and really speaking up on behalf of all the people who are dependent on the cruise industry, because while I had 150,000 employees that were affected, one job on a cruise ship is often looked at as 5 to 7 jobs in the rest of the economy. So a lot of people are impacted. So it's been a trying time, Chase. Everybody knows that, for travel and tourism in general, and certainly for us. We're excited, though. We're sailing again. We have almost 35% of our fleet, the last business update we just gave a week or so ago. Capacity is out. Most importantly, the industry has sailed safely and successfully, and certainly our company has. To date, we've done over 500,000 guests and crew with very few cases of COVID with the protocols, and most of those were asymptomatic or were mild symptoms. Not most, like the vast majority of the few cases we have had. And so we have been able to sail safely. We are coming back. We're excited, but it's still challenging. We still have most of our ships not carrying guests, and we have to keep the ships operating. So we had a cash burn rate during the pause of about, at first 600 million, we got it down to 500 million a month with no revenue. So that's a lot to kind of keep going when you have zero revenue. But things are coming back strong. There's robust demand, but we have to get some harmonization. We have to get destinations open, some harmonization around the world, even within the United States for that matter, on protocols and what's acceptable. And we just encourage everyone to get vaccinated. It's the best way to protect themselves, their loved ones, and their colleagues. So we encourage everyone to get vaccinated. It keeps you out of the hospital, and the vast majority of cases are worse. And with that, everybody will start socializing, and like they're doing here. So I'm just glad everybody's here and that was able to be here in person. And those who, like yourself, are joining virtually, I hope you get to do some social, real life, 3-dimensional interaction soon. But it's been a very challenging time. I could not be more proud. So I'll end with this. Our highest responsibility, our number one priority, always, compliance, environmental protection, and the health, safety, and well-being of everyone. And that's the guests when on our ships, the people in the communities we touch and serve, and then our Carnival family, that's the shipboard and shoreside personnel. So highest responsibility, top priority, because that's the foundation we have to build on to deliver the joyful vacation experiences and the lifelong memories. That's really our business. And I could not be more proud of our people for their dedication and commitment and super high level of execution against a constantly changing environment. Every week the rules change. We get hundreds of thousands of calls a day because the rules keep changing everywhere in the world, and the people have to manage through that. So I'll stop there. But thank you, Chase.
Yeah, of course. The next.
Yeah, really well said, Arnold. I think that, first of all, I concur. I commend the mayor and the county here, Miami-Dade County and South Florida. I mean, we're South Florida and Central Florida, but the leadership in this state and the leadership in South Florida as it relates to getting back to business and getting the tourism industry back on its feet has been nothing short of spectacular. And that group needs to be commended, including all the activity that's happened at the port, the investment that's happened in the tourism industry to prepare for the comeback. I think everybody in this industry has had the perspective that COVID's a blip. We're reacting we've been reacting for the last 15, 20 months. We're probably going to continue to react for some period of time, but we're around for the next 50, 100 years. And we particularly think like that in the rail industry. We're building permanent infrastructure. We're building on infrastructure that's existed for 130 years, and we expect it to exist for another 130 years. So during the pandemic, although we shut down our day-to-day operations, we're private, so we weren't getting any handouts from anybody. But we continue to spend and invest billions of dollars in infrastructure to connect our South Florida system to Central Florida, which will be completed by the end of 2022. So we're a year and a few months away from carrying people between Central Florida and South Florida. We are just a few short weeks away from resuming our operations in South Florida. So certainly it's been a challenge, and not unlike other travel industries, whether it's airlines or the cruise lines, we've faced a lot of confusion and adjustments that we've had to make almost on a weekly basis. I mean, it's been much rougher for the cruise industry, I think, than anybody else. It's been particularly challenging, but I look forward to that harmonization that you referenced. I like that term, because that's what's necessary. It's very difficult to sell into an environment where there's so much confusion, and people are unsure of how it works and what the rules are, and what the regulations are, and how do I comply. So I look forward to that as well, to having more consistency coming out of the mouth of the authorities, whether it's the feds or state level authorities. We need consistent messaging, so we understand how we need to behave, how we need to perform. But look, I think we are getting to a more stable environment, and we're excited about reopening. The tourism, when you think about the tourism industry in this state in particular, traffic levels, hotel occupancy, and dining have already surpassed 100% of pre-COVID numbers. And that's without the cruise industry, without international travel, and without the full return of business travel. Business travel may not return 100%, but these other industries will. So we're excited about what the future holds for South Florida. It is one of the most, we used to always reference, I was in the hotel industry for a couple of decades before I got into the train business. We always, we had hotels all over the country. We always referred to Florida as the Teflon state, because bad things happen, whether it's an economic crisis, people start traveling internationally, they all start going to Florida. People like to travel within the state of Florida. So we're very fortunate. We live in this incredible market. So we're excited about what the future holds, and looking forward to, the next couple of years and the next couple of decades.
Yeah, I guess I'm up. Chase.
Well, yeah, you are.
I like to always start out with positive news to start out. And the positive news for MIA is that we're back. Over the summer, our summer peak, we call it, we were at 97.5% what our pre-COVID 2019 numbers were, which is great news. Typically we average anywhere from 120 to 130,000 passengers a day coming through our facility pre-COVID. To give you an idea of the scope, right when COVID hit, March, April of 2020, we went from 120 to 130,000 to about 4,000 passengers a day. That's a huge impact, right? So we immediately took action in order to make our passengers feel safe, that it was safe to travel. We implemented enhanced cleaning techniques. High touch point cleaning. We implemented cleaning at all of our TSA checkpoints. We installed signage throughout all of our facilities, encouraging people to wear masks, to social distance, etc. We actually were the first airport in the state of Florida and second in the United States to get accredited by the Airports Council International in their health accreditation program, which was just recently accredited for this year. In other words, to maintain that level of confidence in our passengers that it's safe to fly with us, it's safe to fly to MIA. And all those actions that we took, I think, were very helpful in getting us where we are now. So we also had the good fortune of adding some additional carriers during that period of time, which is unprecedented. We had Southwest, JetBlue, Emirates was not a low-cost carrier, but we had them as well. And next week we'll have Spirit Airlines start flying out of MIA as well. So we had that benefit where we had additional airlines start flying, so that helped our volumes and our passenger numbers. But just the overall effort, we took steps internally. We scaled back on filling vacancies, as probably most other departments did. We went ahead and went to a skeleton crew in several of our divisions to kind of keep our budgets in place so we would not have to lay off any employees. And we're very proud that we didn't have to lay off any of our employees and kept them working, kept them coming to work, etc. But with all those actions that we took, that I think led and helped us get to where we are now. So over the summer, we had really unprecedented numbers, and it's amazing. We have monthly meetings with other airport directors throughout the state, and it's good to be in Miami. We have other airports that are at 40% back, 50% back, and I'm the guy on the Zoom call that gets to say we're at 97%, we're good. So It's good news on our end. And we look forward, all of our projections for the end of this year and still going into 2022 are very good. We're looking at about a 10% increase of our planned volume for 2022. So we're hoping to have a very good year. During the pandemic, we had a record year in cargo, which is amazing. And that carried us to a certain degree in cargo. So I think all of those steps that we took, just to give our passengers that level of confidence that you can't fly. We have a federal mandate. So starting in last May, all passengers and anybody that goes into the airport has to wear a mask. They have to social distance, etc. The mask mandate is still in effect. So obviously, most of you that have traveled already, to come into the airport, you have to wear a mask. To get on your flight, you have to wear a mask. So all these different things that we did, I think that improved that level of comfort for our customers, helped us get to where we are now. And, we're looking for a very bright future. And the fact that the cruise lines are starting, I tell Juan this all the time, the fact that they're doing well, it's a symbiotic relationship because they do well, we do well. People that come in from out of the state or out of the city to cruise, they fly into MIA and then they go and take a shuttle or wherever to go to the port and cruise out of the port. So that's all great news for us. The more cruise passengers we get, the more people we get flying into MIA. So we're extremely excited about the end of this year. Our winter schedule, American's going to be flying, I think, 342 flights a day starting now in, I think, November. Their most ambitious schedule in their 30-plus year history with MIA, which we're extremely excited about that, along with some of the other carriers we've added. So we're very, very excited. The news is good. I think we showed what Miami's all about. We're resilient as a community. We're able to bounce back. Like the mayor said, we're able to pivot and do the things we needed to do to protect our staff, protect our customers, protect our traveling public, and get them to the point that they're comfortable flying out of MIA now. So we're looking forward to a very, very bright 2022.
Well, so since you brought up masks and mask wearing in airports, let's just keep talking about that. We can get rid of the unfun subject. We can just get it over with. Just be done with it.
Okay.
Air travel is probably seeing more problems than any other sector of the travel industry. We've seen fights breaking out in airports, on airplanes, people not wearing masks, drunk passengers, with masks not going anywhere until at least January. What can we do to make things, easier to ensure that everyone can fly safely? Is it a level of education? Is it trying to communicate, compassion better to people? But also how do we support, the frontline workers that are having to deal with the enforcement? How can we better support, TSA, airport workers, and Arnold and Patrick, you guys could possibly speak to this as well, because I'm sure your employees probably have to deal with some of this too when it comes to asking for vaccine cards and other things like that. So, when it comes to sort of that COVID safety issue, but especially with mask wearing at airports, which has been pretty contentious, What can we do to keep people safe?
Okay, I can give you, unfortunately, I have these statistics ingrained into my head because we deal with them every day, so I'll just rattle off some numbers. The national average for unruly passenger events nationwide in any given year, pre-COVID, is anywhere from 150 to 200 unruly passenger incidents a year. So if you take the high end of that average, it's 200, right? So 200 passengers, 200 incidents of unruly passengers. That's pre-COVID. So far this year, we have had nationwide more than 4,100 unruly passenger incidents throughout the country.
Wow.
That's a 2,600% increase in unruly passenger incidents nationwide. If you get an idea of what I'm talking about, that's 2,600% more. At MIA alone, as of 2 days ago, we are now at 256, I think, unruly passenger incidents. So we are just here about 56 incidents over the high end of the national average. So to get an idea, that's a major impact. What the FAA is telling us through their studies and through their surveys is that about 80% of those incidents are related to mask wearing. I mean, people just refusing to wear their mask, etc. We had to pull a passenger, not us, an airline had to pull a passenger off a flight the other day because he had an offensive mask. And they had to call the flight back, made him take it off. So, I mean, the mask thing, it's not, like you said, Chase, it's not going away anytime soon. So what have we done? We have signage all throughout our terminals, basically informing all of our passengers that the federal mandate is still in effect and that they have to wear their mask. Another thing we've done to curtail some of these incidents is that we've redeployed our police officers and our law enforcement folks post-security, because we're finding that a lot of these incidents are taking place at gates. They're taking place not pre-security, post-security. So we've redeployed some staff. And I have to say our shout out to our police director, Freddie Ramirez, and his staff that works with us. I can't say enough about our officers. They do a tremendous job. I mean, the response times are 2 minutes in some cases, which is an incredible response time. So we have enforcement in the terminal. We also have a see something, say something policy. So we have all of our airline partners, cargo partners, tenants, concessionaires. If they see something, we ask them to immediately call the police department so that they can respond quickly and maybe avoid an incident being escalated and getting out of hand. I'll give you one example. We had recently a great story, sad and great story. We had a Marine veteran from Afghanistan who had a PTSD incident at a gate. Our police officers responded in less than 2 minutes. Our terminal is 8.5 million square feet of air-conditioned space, 10 million square feet total if you include the ramp. For the police officers to respond in 2 minutes, that's record time. They were able to de-escalate this individual, take him into custody, get him treatment without violence. So we're doing all those things to go ahead and try to help reduce those incidents. Signage, education throughout the terminal. We've trained our staff. One of the things we're looking to do now is to try to get some of our staff trained in counseling. That was actually the mayor's idea. We're trying to get some of our staff trained in counseling technique so they can better handle situations before the police even show up, to maybe de-escalate things before they happen. So this is not going to go away anytime soon. What we're trying to do is limit these things so that hopefully once COVID is over and done with, people will begin again to, they get used to how to travel. We have an issue also with alcohol. Some of these incidents are related to alcohol consumption. So we're working with our concessionaires, working with some of our airline partners as far as alcohol sales, curtailing that. Not curtailing it, but making sure that the people serving alcohol recognize the signs when somebody's had too much. We have our police officers that are doing what we call last call patrols at the different establishments in the terminal that serve alcohol to be able to catch things before they happen. Again, being proactive. So those are some of the steps we're taking to make the traveling experience better for our passengers and to keep incidents from recurring. I mean, we still have the problem, but hopefully as COVID dies down, we'll get over it.
Yeah, it's, I can't wait for an era in which we don't have to think about COVID anymore and we don't have to think about enforcing masks or anything else. I'm very much looking forward to it, not only for myself, but also, all of the frontline workers that have really been, on the front end of having to deal with this and enforce this. And, these people they're not people that dealt with this every day before now.
Right.
Yeah, so kind of if we want to go on, I want to talk about leisure travel and its recovery. So Arnold, these ones will be thrown at you, but like I said before, if anyone has anything, feel free to pop in. How do you see the recovery of leisure travel continuing, in the next year? Yeah, I know one of the things I've been starting to hear, and I, kind of close my eyes. I want it to not be real every time I see it, is talking about COVID and the flu this winter. And, how do you think concerns about COVID will affect, interest in traveling as we get to the winter months? And do you have any specific concerns when it comes to your industry? Because as we unfortunately saw, at the start of the pandemic, cruise ships were the last places anyone wanted to end up being.
Okay. So you gave me a lot to work with there. So first of all, I have to acknowledge that I can verify about the airport being back because I flew in last night and landed in gate D60. And so any of you that know the airport well know that that's a long walk to baggage claim. My walk took longer than the flight, but it's not the airport's fault.
That's part of our passenger wellness program.
It's part of it. So I wanted the exercise. I could have taken the train. I wanted the exercise. I could have taken the train about a third of the way in, so it's not the airport's fault. But it was packed, and it was just great to see people traveling and everything, and it was a great experience. So, look, I think when it comes to leisure travel, first of all, the perception that nobody want to be on a cruise ship, it's just not true. We have millions and millions of previous cruise goers, and they know we've dealt with Zika, Ebola, SARS, MERS, and we've had to deal with viruses. We go to 700 destinations with our 9 world-leading cruise line brands pre-COVID. And so we had a lot of the protocols that people are talking about, hand sanitation stations and all that stuff existed pretty extensively on cruise ships already. Now, this virus is unique, obviously. It's shut the whole world down. And so we had to understand what the epidemiology was, what the transmission characteristics were, et cetera, to come up with specific protocols to mitigate the risk of spread of COVID on the ship. But there were a lot of people ready to cruise. In fact, when we shut down, people were upset. People were flying in to get on ships. So they weren't concerned. And so people who haven't cruised may be a little more nervous because they hadn't cruised. But the people that have, they understand what I told you guys are our highest priority and top responsibility, and we live that every day. Demand is robust. Our second half bookings next year are ahead of where they were in pre-COVID in 2019. Our ships now, we intentionally have limited, although we're sailing at scale, our Carnival Mardi Gras ship, the newest ship for the Carnival brand. We're selling over 4,000 guests on that ship weekly. And so we're at scale, but we have intentionally contained capacity for this interim period of time as our crew and as people get used to all the protocols. And the protocols keep changing. We started in the U.S., vaccinated cruises under the CDC definition, without testing and without masks wearing. But then, as the Delta variant reared its ugly head, we started putting in testing even for vaccinated guests, and we put in mask wearing in interior inside spaces and stuff. And mainly people comply. Of course, when you're selling that many people, you're always going to have a few outliers, but mainly they understand their use on a cruise ship to go into destinations where the rules are different for everything. And so they are in a compliant mood. And then we, of course, have not only security, but our staff all trained. Because, again, we've had to deal with viruses and stuff in the past. Where is the leisure travel going to go? I think, look, people want experiences. Sure. They inherently want to socialize. They want to see other cultures. They want to go places. They want to experience the new and different thing, whether it's nature, whether it's other individuals, whether, it's experiences like entertainment. It doesn't matter. That's what people, they want to socialize. They want adventure. And that's what we do. So leisure travel is going to be there. The form of it is going to be determined by what's necessary to keep people safe and whether you have to test. And I think this is what's important. What will fast forward the recovery of leisure travel, the following things. As you know, I also chair the World Travel and Tourism Council, and we've made this globally, and we meet with governments around the world. First and foremost, data-driven, science-based, risk-adjusted protocols, so that, that's what's determining what you do. In our company's case, we had a panel of medical experts around the world and science experts inform us, while we also, of course, work with every regulatory body in the world to make sure, we're doing the right things. But harmonizing that is important. And so vaccines. It's easy to just say vaccines, but there's so many different vaccines, which, by the way, we should applaud. If you think about this, like 18, 20 months ago, nobody even knew what this was. They had no idea. What is it? How is it transmitted? What's the epidemiology? Nobody knew anything. 20 months later, we have multiple vaccines, advanced treatments, et cetera. I mean, the world pulling together and the science and the knowledge and the ability to identify a problem and address it is absolutely remarkable. So we should be applauding that. But having said that, now we need harmonization. If WHO or other global bodies with medical experts say this vaccine is approved, it's good for countries around the world. All agree with that so people can travel freely, okay? And then it's important to have vaccination protocols that are also harmonized. So not only that if this vaccine is approved, that, what's required in terms of quarantining and so on, that gets harmonized around the world so people can travel freely. And the focus should be on the individual. When we say, oh, if it's this country, we won't take people from that country. The fact is, if the individuals are vaccinated or they've been tested and so on and so forth, they're as safe as any other individual that was vaccinated or tested. And so the focus should be more on individuals as opposed to quick fix solutions like nations. The next thing is in terms of the protocols themselves, we should have high standards and globally so that we are making certain that people are safe as they travel around the world. And then the last thing is make it easy. So some kind of, there's the green pass in Europe, but some kind of digital quick and easy. In fact, I flew in, I had a 10-city, 9-day, 12 COVID test tour of Europe a week ago. And some of those tests were, you will not believe some of the tests out there. But in any event, and I came back in through the Miami airport and they're using the biometric, as you know.
Yep.
And it took literally from off the plane, I only take carry-on. So off the plane to the car took me like 3 minutes coming on, and it was full flights coming in. It was that quick. And so that's ease of travel. So we make it easy, but safe and thorough. So some kind of digitalization, would help where you can prove that you've been vaccinated or you've taken the proper test or you've taken the proper test. So those are the things, but leisure travel is in us. And, the future is very bright. For the cruise industry, it's exceptionally bright as is reflected in the share prices, while the stocks, we all had to put additional shares out and all that. The enterprise value is, equal to or even higher in some cases than the pre-COVID enterprise value of the firms because people know in the end, we're all coming back. Now, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We know the distance to that light is shorter. We still don't know exactly how long that tunnel is. And that's going to be determined by some of those things I just said in terms of harmonization, vaccination, protocols, et cetera, where we can make it easy for people to travel safely, serving the best interests of public health.
By the way, to piggyback on one thing Arnold said, on the facial biometrics, we process 10 individuals a minute with the facial biometrics. So when he said you're getting to the parking garage in 3 minutes, he's not far off.
It was amazing.
You go in and out. It's touchless. International passengers come in, and we process approximately 10 passengers a minute. So
took a lot longer from gate D60.
Yeah, that was a longer one. But the point is, we want to make it safe and quick for the people to get in and out.
We're going to use the bright line train at.
Okay. Awesome. Well, and you kind of, Patrick, you mentioned this in your opening statements, and then Arnold, you got at it too. You talked about that lack of consistent messaging, when it comes to COVID protocols and COVID safety. And so I want to talk about that next. I assume that's been, hard because, we have cities saying one thing, we have counties saying another, we have states saying another, and then the federal government saying another. And then obviously we also have, different governments around the world. And, and the thing that I almost wonder is, as much as I would love for everybody to get along and us all to all agree on these things, I know that's not a very realistic proposition. So, what can we do what can you guys do to help make things easier in light of that sort of lack of overarching coordination that obviously, can buy on everything?
I mean, I'll attempt to answer that, but it's really the kind of work that Arnold's talking about, advocacy at a global level, and science-backed, data-backed protocols that are being determined and agreed upon by, a wide spectrum of stakeholders who have a vested interest in seeing this be successful. That's the drum that we've all got to be beating. So whether you're doing that through your local tourism agencies or regional tourism agencies or country levels, being invested as a stakeholder in understanding what the protocol should be, determining what they should be, and pushing that agenda forward is how this gets done ultimately. But I mean, that's the kind of work that Arnold's talking about that needs to happen, globally.
Yeah, and Arnold, I want to give you a second if you have anything to add, but otherwise I'll get on to the next thing.
Yeah, on that particular comment, yeah, we have to have advocacy, but we have to provide the data and the information. But then you know, people have so many different agendas, and in the main, everyone is trying to do the right thing. In the main, there's some few exceptions there, but in the main, people are trying to do the right thing. They're trying to do the best they can. So the best thing you can do is provide, you know, really independent data that shows, you know, what really works, what is, you know, overkill, you know, what's amiss, you know, and so on, and then spend the time and effort to do that. So even today, for the cruise industry, we still have abrupt changes that are put upon us, either by federal authority or by, you know, as you mentioned, state, local, et cetera, that really can disrupt people's travel. And it impedes, you know, when you ask about demand, that's that uncertainty, as a couple of these guys already said. It's the uncertainty that causes people pause. And so we really, and it's not just the uncertainty, it's also extreme. So, you know, we shouldn't have a zero risk mindset. You know, I mean, there is no such thing almost as zero risk. And if we really want to have a vibrant global community that's behaving in a safe and responsible way, but still able to have legitimate economic activity and provide for the well-being of everyone, then, you know, we have to have, you know, a risk-benefit kind of mindset. So those are challenges that persist for us in the cruise industry. Luckily, we've gotten enough different agencies in the U.S. and around the world to work with us where we make some progress, but we're not there yet, and we have to stay on it. So I appreciate all the support from everyone that stood up to say, look, these guys are being responsible. Let's make sure that we don't overburden them, and I really appreciate it. We need it to continue.
Well, I am really excited to talk about trains. As someone who grew up in one state that doesn't really have any trains, Texas, and lives in another state that also doesn't really have any trains, South Carolina. And I feel like that's a pretty, you know, good showing of the fact that, you know, our nation doesn't really have much in the way of rail infrastructure, but I do know that people do love trains. I am someone who hates driving. I'm not very good at it. So anything that will allow me to get from one place to another, I am generally for. But, you know, you guys are looking at Florida and California, from what I understand, and those are two places that are really known for driving. And so, you know, what do you think will make it work there, and how do you see, you know, trains continuing to be? I assume you see them as a growing part of the travel industry. And so, you know, why is that? What do you think will make it work? And how do we get people to want to take trains?
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's amazing that this country is one of the richest countries in the world, yet is 13th in infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And we're about 5 decades behind Europe and Asia in terms of high-speed rail or intercity passenger rail. You know, we've got lots of transit systems, which are great for getting you, you know, a couple miles on the road, sort of 15, 20, 30 mile systems that have stations every 1 to 2 miles. But really, we don't have any substitute for those distances that are too short to fly and too long to drive. Those 250 mile to 400 mile distances between densely populated cities along congested corridors. And we've started, so we're a private intercity passenger rail company. We started operating in 2018. We've obviously taken a pause. We're about to restart our Florida operations, but Central Florida, South Florida is a great example of that. The distance is about 250 miles. There are about 400 million trips a year between Central Florida and South Florida by highway, along I-95, which happens to be one of the most congested highways in the country. Has about 50,000 accidents a year, has about 3,000 deaths a year. The average speed on 95 is 33 miles an hour. And, you know, for those of you who have been on it in the last 2 months, anytime close to rush hour, it's about 10 miles an hour. So we need alternate modes. The population growth, just taking South Florida as an example, and we're also building a system between LA and Vegas. And that's I-15. California just decided they're not going to invest anymore in that highway. So you got sort of a 2-3 lane highway turning into a 8 lane highway when it crosses the Nevada border, but that's not very helpful when you're on your way back on a Sunday night. So we're looking at developing a 230-mile corridor there with trains traveling at 200 miles an hour. That'll get you from LA to Vegas in about 90 minutes. But there are probably a dozen markets around the United States, whether it's Chicago to St. Louis, you've got in Texas, right? They're looking at Dallas to Houston. There are a number of corridors that fit that sweet spot of 250, 450 miles apart, very densely populated corridors. And by the way, we have intercity high-speed rail in the Northeast with the Acela service, which actually does very well, carries about 12 million passengers a year, makes $500 million in EBITDA for Amtrak. It's a shame the rest of Amtrak loses about $2 billion, but it's a pretty meaningful business and not a terrible model. I think that what we need to think about as it relates to Amtrak, the Acela services, what we thought about is how do you elevate that experience? How do you make it a better experience? How do you make it more reliable? How do we make sure the infrastructure is of a high quality so the trip in itself is pleasant? But it has to work. You just look at the South Florida market, we've had about 500,000 people move into the state in the last 12 months. Population has grown significantly. It continues to grow. We're at about 21, 22 million, and it's going to be 30 million before we know it. There's nowhere else to go on I-95. There is no more asphalt that you can build. So we need other modes. We need other ways of moving around, and people need to start. Transportation is an ecosystem. It's not just about our rail that's going to, we're not going to solve the problem for everybody. There need to be other modes. There needs to be more light rail. There needs to be more commuter rail systems, bus rapid transit systems. The challenge in Florida is weather. People don't want to stand at a bus stop. So, how do you solve that problem? It's a similar problem in Texas. How do you solve that problem? You can solve it with things like rideshare and on-demand shuttles and bus rapid transit systems on dedicated routes. So I think what we've done is we have started a conversation certainly in the Florida market, around how do we actually create an environment that makes a car-free lifestyle possible. And not everybody is going to, turn their car in and, move to a car-free lifestyle 100%. But if we get you to consider leaving your car at home 1 or 2 days a week, we're starting to make some progress. We're starting to head in the right direction. And that's starting to happen. We are seeing it. And if you look at our Miami Central station, which will reopen in a few weeks from now, we're connected to Tri-Rail, Metro Rail, the Metro Mover, and obviously we've got rideshare there. But Metro Rail carries 22 million people a year in Miami-Dade County. The Metro Mover carries about 10 million people a year. It's a free service that connects downtown Miami to downtown Brickell. And then Tri-Rail carries about 5-6 million people. It stops at the airport, but now it's going to continue into Miami Central very soon. So, you've got about 150 million trips going through that Miami Central station on an annual basis when you sort of add the stops. So it's pretty meaningful. People are starting to, divert, and then when we restart, we're actually going to restart in our app. You're going to be able to get a ride for your first and last mile. So we can pick you up where you are, take you to the station, then pick you up at your destination station and take you wherever you're going. So we're actually deploying a fleet of a couple of hundred vehicles, Teslas, vans, golf carts that will be accessible in the app, so you can actually plan your trip door to door. The next phase of that will integrate that with public transport. We'll integrate it with rideshare companies. So we start to solve that problem for people. People don't like to do the mental gymnastics of planning, multimodal travel. It wasn't possible before. It's like, okay, I got to get a bus to here and then ride my bike over here. Then I got to make sure I get to the train station on time. And then they're trying to do the mental math about how they get home again. There's too much friction involved in that transaction. So with the advent of technology, you're now able to plan, pay for, and get ticketed for multimodal travel. So you can actually plan it all as one journey. And that's really the future of the car-free lifestyle in urban markets like ours. So we're going to be launching, the initial service in November that will include our fleet of vehicles, but we're going to be looking to then incorporate other modes so we can enable that car-free lifestyle. And I think those are the kinds of conversations that need to happen across the country, but we need to move faster. If you look at Europe and Asia, they have invested and continue to invest trillions with a T into high-speed rail. We have a bill that's got $80 billion in it that everyone's fighting about, that we don't even know if it's going to get passed or not, and a very small portion of that is actually for new high-speed rail. It's mostly fixing existing broken infrastructure. The current administration is not taking this seriously, or as seriously as I think we need to. What we're advocating for as a private developer of high-speed rail is that let us help you make your dollar go farther. Let us help you make your dollars go further. There are other economic investment models for infrastructure around the world that we can draw examples from to enable high-speed rail around the country to solve the transportation problems that are going to get worse and worse. We've got to catch up with the existing infrastructure problems, and we need to invest in new if we have any hope to maintain a competitive advantage as a global economic power.
Well, we have about 3 minutes left, so I have one very last question. It's a big question, but I hope we'll be able to get to it. So one of the biggest problems facing the travel and tourism industry, and something that I have written extensively about, has been workers. The worker shortage that has hit the industry in the last year has been just astronomical. We've had restaurants that have sat empty or had empty tables. We have hotels that aren't able to sell rooms. Airports have struggled to get people, in through security and everything. And, a decent chunk of that, and what I've heard a lot about, is pay. It's low. It's the fact that travel is known as an industry that is low paying and high stress. And even if that's, a stereotype in your specific sector of the industry, how do we fix that? How do we convince people to take these jobs?
I'll start. I think for us, we have our crew on the ships are from 145 plus different nations. So in terms of recruiting and stuff, it's not really an issue for us. We had a lot of, 90,000 people we had to get back home safely when this first happened, when airports were closed, airlines weren't flying, and borders were closed. So it took us months to get everybody home safely. But we have a huge base of previous employees, and then with the countries we recruit in, we can definitely get qualified people on the ships. What you are seeing, though, nationally and internationally, is COVID caused a lot of people to step back and reevaluate their lives. And so you see a massive turnover across all industries. People are thinking, again, where they want to live. Are you going to let me work remotely? You know what? I was in this industry, but do I really love it? We have 2 household income. Do we really need a 2 household income? The kids need more attention, et cetera. And so there's a lot of that going on. And I think while, we all talk pay, it's not just about pay. And that can certainly be a component and shouldn't be ignored, obviously. But it's not just about that. It's really about how people want to live their lives and so on. And people are just sorting that out. And then the stimulus packages around the world. That first stimulus package here in the States, many months after it had been distributed, about 70% of that was still in savings accounts in banks. And so people, have accumulated a little bit. And so that need to work is lessened for a period of time. But of course, that stuff's going to run out and what have you. But there's just a big change. We need to pay attention to it and pay attention to the pay, but also the other aspects of work-life stuff that it will make you a preferred, place to work.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's about being focused on the total human. You can no longer just think about, pay is not enough. Pay is important. It's not insignificant. And certainly if the government is paying you more to stay at home, that's a challenge, which was the case up until fairly recently. But I think thinking about what people's career goals are, what their aspirations are outside of work, really understanding who they are as humans, and giving them a reason to come to work outside of just what's in their job description, giving them a sense of belonging, giving them status, giving them opportunities for growth and development. So I think a lot of employers have had to really, spend this time thinking about how they can create a better employee experience. Because those, particularly in our line of work and in the hospitality industry and in the airline industry too, you're really focused on the guest experience, but that guest experience is never going to materialize if you've got a poor employee experience. Everything that you do with your employees is going to translate into outcomes with your guests. So paying attention to that and really thinking about the whole human and formulating programs that actually offer people more than just a job, those are the organizations that are going to win.
I think to piggyback on what Arnold and Patrick said, aviation employees, we haven't had as much of an issue as far as retaining our employees. But our concessionaires that man all of our facilities, they took a big hit. So they've had, I think right now we're about 68% back as far as all of our concessionaires. And one of the biggest complaints we get from them is that they're having a hard time both hiring and retaining staff. Just because, like Arnold said, you have people that have amassed a certain amount of money at home from some of the stimulus. And a lot of them, I'll be honest, I've heard the same stories that they've decided to reevaluate their lives. Some of them are concessionaires that have had chefs, for example, cooks, that have decided to go out into business on their own and cook and do home delivery meals and those kind of things. So they're losing those kind of employees. So one of the things that we've done is we have worked with the mayor on a concessionaire relief package, which we're currently putting through it'll be hopefully going to the board soon. And we provided a lot of these concessionaires relief so to try to encourage them to, open up again, reopen their businesses. And it's helped somewhat. We're at about 68%. We're not there yet. But I think a lot of it is, to Patrick's point, is that it's more about just a job and it's more about than just a salary. So one of the initiatives that the mayor has included in our concession relief packages is living wage and, insurance benefits and things like that will make those positions more attractive where typically they don't have those kind of benefits. Because it's all about the person, like Patrick said. It's not just about a salary. It's not just about a job. And a lot of people that have actually reevaluated what they thought they wanted to do have turned around now and said, you know what, I can do something different and maybe make either more money or maybe make a little less.
Happy.
But I'd rather just enjoy my life and not have the daily grind of working a 12 to 14-hour job cooking at a concessionaire, where I can just work for myself and work out of my house and make money that way. So I think it's a combination of, I think ultimately we'll get there, but we do have to make some changes. And I think some of those changes are important. I mean, making the employee feel that he's important, that he or she is important, that what they're doing is important, and it's not just about a salary. It's about whatever, benefits, how they're treated in the office, bonuses, whatever it takes to bring them back. We have some concessionaires that have actually offered bonuses just to rehire people. $500 signing bonuses to bring people back. Those kind of things. That's a monetary incentive. Others have, split shifts, things like that have implemented. But I think it's about, as Patrick said, it's about not just the passenger experience, but if you have good employees and they're happy, that'll project out to our passengers, and it just helps the business all the way around.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time that we have, but thank you guys so much. I really appreciated getting to chat with y'all, and hopefully I'll be able to make it down there soon to see some of y'all in person.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.